How's it going, everyone? Marriland here, and this is Marriland's Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon Pokémon Review series, which ties into my Ultra Moon walkthrough series. Although, don't worry, both the review and the walkthrough series apply for Pokémon Ultra Sun as well. This video goes over the various Pokémon and their evolutions that can be found in the listed area that also haven't been covered in a previous video. You can use the timestamps in the description to jump directly to the review that you want to hear. The reviews up ahead are for in-game purposes only and are not geared towards player versus player fights or post-game stuff. The stats you see listed are the Pokemon's base stats, not actual stats, and are the base of calculating stats at any level. Anyway, on with the reviews. Meowth, that's right. Wait, this isn't the Meowth you're used to, you say? Well, that's because this is the Alolan version of Meowth, and it evolves into the Alolan variant of Persian as well. Both Meowth and Persian are dark types, like many other Pokemon in Alola. Meowth evolves into Persian by leveling up with high happiness, which can be raised by gaining levels, using vitamins or certain berries, by running around with it in your party, and so on. Meowth has pretty lousy stats, except for its high speed. Persians also are pretty lackluster, with mediocre special attack being the only thing other than its very high speed stat to stand out. What makes up for these underwhelming stats is Persian's ability, though there's actually two good normal abilities to choose from. If Meowth has Pickup, which is nice for picking up extra items outside of battle, it'll turn into Fur Coat upon evolving, which halves the damage it receives from physical-based moves. Yes, halves. That makes it quite a bit more defensive than its stats would suggest, although it's still not going to be a tank. Its second ability is probably the better of the two, and both Meowth and Persian can have it, Technician. Technician powers up moves with 60 or less power by 50%, so moves that are normally 60 power have the equivalent of 90 power instead, which is actually quite nice. Technician is actually wonderful with a move that Meowth gets early on at just level 6. Bite normally has 60 power anyway, so that's pretty good even without Technician, given you get Stab, but having the equivalent of a 90 power Stab move that can make the foe flinch is a great move that early in the game. It also gets Fake Out at level 9, which gets a Technician boost, and is a great way to open up fights, but keep in mind it can only be used on the first turn Meowth or Persian's in battle. As a Persian, Power Gem at level 32 is a pretty strong special-based Rock-type move, and while it doesn't get a Technician boost, it doesn't really need it, and it works fine with Fur Coat as well. Nasty Plot at level 44 is another cool move that raises its special attack by 2 stages. Lastly, for level up moves, you can spend a heart scale at the end of the game to learn Dark Pulse, which can't be taught via TM until after the game has been beaten. There are quite a few handy TM moves for Meowth and Persian, including Thief at the end of the first island, but you'll also gain access to some fantastic tutor moves. Shockwave and Water Pulse can both be learned, and both have 60 power, which makes them eligible for that Technician boost, and turns them into pretty strong moves. Hidden Power is also a move that can be boosted with Technician, and depending on the type it is, which is pretty much random, it may be a type helpful for your team. Snarl on the third island is also great on Persian regardless of its ability, as it's a 55 power Dark type move that lowers the target's special attack. With Technician, it becomes a very strong move. With Fur Coat, you cover your lower special defense problem. Lastly, later on, it gets Icy Wind from a move tutor, as well as Shadow Ball and Thunderbolt from TMs. Here's the thing though, there are plenty of other good dark types in Alola. I know I say that a lot, but it's true, and you can find several of them right here outside of the trainer's school. Zorua evolves rather late at level 30, but has excellent attack, special attack, and speed once it evolves into Zoroark. Grimer also becomes very good once it's a Muck, but that's also all the way at level 38. Then there's also Rattata and Inkay that you just ran into. Well, at least Meowth is better than Rattata. Zorua and Zoroark are two Dark-type Pokemon that are actually pretty popular, so the fact that you're rather effortlessly able to get a Zorua so early in the game is pretty neat. Zorua evolves into Zoroark at level 30, which is unfortunately quite a bit late. It's also really important to understand that you'll often be confused if you use Zorua or Zoroark because its illusion ability disguises it as whichever Pokemon is in your bottom right party slot. When you send it into battle, it'll appear that you're sending out that Pokemon instead, so you may often find yourself second-guessing which Pokemon is actually out on the field. Illusion is actually a great way to psych out some foes. Having a fighting or poison-type Pokemon that's weak to Psychic on your team, and putting it into your bottom right slot may give any Psychic-type Pokemon a confusing time as they try to use their Psychic-type moves on a seemingly weak Pokemon over and over again, while your Zorua or Zoroark is free to attack or set up other moves. Zorua's stats aren't terrible for an unevolved Pokemon, with high special attack and reasonable attack and speed. It keeps that trend after it evolves, with excellent special attack along with great attack and speed, but rather frail hit points and defensive stats. It's definitely a glass cannon. As far as moves go, that's the sad part. It doesn't really get a lot of moves while leveling up, and it'll need some assistance from TMs for a lot of the game. Pursuit is going to be your main damage dealer all the way until level 17, where it gets Feint Attack. Not a major upgrade, but it's something. Foul Play at level 29 is good, but it then gets Night Slash when it evolves at level 30. And since Zoroark's attack is likely to be higher than the foe's, you'll probably want to go with Night Slash over Foul Play. That's really it though, all the way until level 54, when it gets the handy Nasty Plot, and then finally at either level 64 or by spending a Heart Scale, getting its signature move Night Daze, which is definitely worthwhile for Zoroark, but it's so darn late into the game. It learns no good tutor moves, unfortunately. Thief is decent early on for a bit of extra damage, though Feint Attack is usually a better bet unless you need to steal something. Hidden Power, while random in its type, at least gives you something to make use of Zorua and Zoroark's special attack stat, so hopefully you get something good. U-Turn and Low Sweep are reasonable, because even though Zoroark's attack is lower than its special attack, it still has pretty good attack, so don't discount that. Once you get Snarl on the third island, definitely consider that, because even though it's a bit on the weak side, it makes use of Zoroark's high special attack, and also lowers the foe's special attack. Whether you go with Night Slash or Snarl will depend on Zoroark's nature and stats, so look carefully, and understand the move's power difference is also affected by the stat difference. Lastly, late into the game, Flamethrower is a wonderful TM move to teach Zoroark. As I say all the time, there are plenty of Dark-type Pokemon in Alola, and a lot of them are available early in the game. Zorua is a great choice to make for a Dark-type, usually better than Persian or Malamar. Grimer would be excellent, but it evolves way too late to be helpful. There's also Murkrow not far off, which isn't too shabby. Regardless, as long as you can put up with sometimes lackluster moves and wait until level 30, Zorua and Zoroark are pretty decent choices. Magnemite, how does it work? Well, let's figure that out, shall we? Magnemite and its evolutions are all graced with perhaps the best type combination in the game, Electric Steel. Having just 3 weaknesses, this type combination possesses a record-breaking 12 resistances or immunities. On top of that, it has just 3 weaknesses. That's really darn good. No Pokemon has as many as the Magnemite family has. Magnemite evolves into Magneton when you catch 3 Magnemite and super glue them together. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, it evolves at level 30, which is pretty late, but at least Magnemite stays useful in the meanwhile, with great special attack and reasonable defense, and special defense. Magneton gets a lot better, with excellent special attack, great defense, and boosts everywhere else. Magneton has another evolution too, Magnezone, which you can get if you level up a Magneton at Blush Mountain on the 3rd island. Magnezone improves all of its stats by a reasonable amount, except for its speed, which actually decreases. Although Magnezone is definitely an upgrade to Magneton, it's actually not a terrible idea keeping Magneton as a Magneton and giving it the Eviolite held item, which raises the defense and special defense of Pokemon that aren't fully evolved, by 50% nonetheless. That, coupled with Magneton's incredible amount of resistances, means you'll have a very bulky Pokemon at the cost of just 10 base stats worth of special attack compared to Magnezone, which isn't too drastic at all. However, Magnezone can also hold an item other than the Eviolite, including Z crystals and other boosting items, so you're still probably better off with Magnezone, but it's at least an option to consider. The entire family has 2 normal abilities, Magnet Pull and Sturdy. Magnet Pull is pretty worthless in-game, as it just prevents the opponent's Steel-type Pokemon from switching out. Sturdy is pretty good though. Not only does it prevent one-hit KO moves like Fissure and Horn Drill, but if it has full hit points and then takes damage from an attack that would knock it out in one hit, it'll hang in there with one hit point left. It has to have full hit points though, but that can be a great safety net in case something has a ground type move that you weren't expecting. Also, after clearing your first trial, Pokemon can start calling other Pokemon in battle, and there's a chance that after at least 10 Pokemon called, they'll have their hidden ability, shown in yellow. Magnemite in its evolution's hidden ability is Analytic, which increases the power of their moves by 30% if they move after the target. Magnezone isn't exactly fast, so it'll often give you a free 30% boost. The problem is investing the time and getting the hidden ability. Using Adrenaline Orbs and the Move Tutor move Worry Seed can help with that, but again, that's a lot of time to invest, and it isn't really necessary. Anyway, as for moves, for the most part, the Magnemite family is pretty straightforward. It gets Thunder Shock right from the start, which hits quite hard early on. Thunder Wave at level 7 is nice for slowing the foe down, and sometimes preventing it from acting. Magnet Bomb at level 11 is far better than Tackle, but it's physical, not special, so it won't hit as hard as Thunder Shock against most things. While Light Screen at level 13 is good for raising your team's special defense for a few turns. Mirror Shot at level 23 is the first special-based Steel-type move Magnemite has access to, and, while it's not great, it's way better than Magnet Bomb. If you hold off on evolving Magnemite one level, it gets Flash Cannon at level 31 instead of 33 as a Magneton. And Flash Cannon is one of Magneton and Magnezone's must-have moves. Absolutely. Tri-Attack, which Magneton gets upon evolving, isn't terrible, but it's also not really necessary. Discharge at level 43 is excellent until you get Thunderbolt from TM, and even then, Discharge is sometimes preferred due to having a 30% chance of paralyzing the foe instead of the 10% Thunderbolt has. Magnemite doesn't get many options for TMs on the first island, but for tutor moves, it gets some really good ones. Signal Beam is a wonderful move for it that gives it some extra type coverage, while either Shockwave or Electroweb are must-have upgrades to Thundershock. Magnemite's speed is pretty low, so Electroweb may be preferred over Shockwave, since it also lowers the foe's speed. Additionally, a tutor move it gets pretty early on is Magnet Rise, which removes its ground-type weakness for 5 turns. Magnemite with Sturdy can pull that off without any worry, and then laugh in the face of any ground types looking to destroy Magnemite. After you've healed up, of course. It's very situational, though, and usually you're better off just, sending out a different Pokemon instead. Lastly, for early tutor moves, it has Iron Defense as an option, which is actually pretty helpful because Magnemite already has a bunch of defense and a ton of resistances. So that combined with Light Screen makes it very tough to take down if you want to go for a more defensive route. It gets both Light Screen and Reflect from TM, which is nice to know if you want to swap between Light Screen and Reflect, depending on the fights up ahead. Other than that, there aren't many great options. Charge Beam is good just before the second trial, as it usually raises the special attack of Magnemite by 1 stage, but it has a chance of missing and still seems a little weak in comparison to Shockwave or Electroweb. Volt Switch can be alright too, and then Thunder is an option to consider, although a risky one. Thunderbolt, available near the start of the 4th island, is probably its best move though. Overall, Magnemite is a good addition to the team. Although it takes a while to evolve, it doesn't suffer quite as badly as other Pokemon, since it has so many resistances and has more than ample special attack. Other eventual electric options are Vikavolt, Alolan Raichu, Jolteon, and Electivire, just to name a few of the best. In my personal opinion, I'd say only Jolteon makes a better electric type, and even then, it lacks the sweet resistances Magnemite and its family have. Magnezone is also a top-notch steel type, though the only one that strikes with a special-based move, and it isn't quite as defensive stat-wise as a few other options. Regardless, Magnemite and its family are very strong options for a position on your team. What smells? Well, it's actually not this Grimer. Alolan Grimer and its evolution, Alolan Muck, are actually known for cleaning up garbage by consuming it, and they also don't smell all that bad like their foreign counterparts. Not only that, but like so many other Pokemon in Alola, Grimer gained a Dark type, becoming Poison Dark, which is actually a really good type combination, weak only to ground. Grimer's hit points and attack are both great. It's got decent enough defenses, but it's slow as molasses. Muck's stats are actually really good, with very high hit points and great attack, great special defense, as well as more than reasonable defense. It can take plenty of hits, and has very little to worry about type-wise thanks to that brilliant type combination. The major downside is Grimer evolves all the way at level 38, which is such a long time. You'll likely have cleared 6 out of the 8 trials in the game by that point, and Grimer really can't hold a candle to the challenges on the 3rd island when other Pokemon are already evolved, some even twice. Both Grimer and Muck have 2 normal abilities. Poison Touch is probably the more useful of the 2, and is actually really handy, giving it a 30% chance of poisoning foes when using moves that make contact with the foe, such as Bite. Its other ability, Gluttony, is a little trickier. With Gluttony, Grimer and Muck eat berries that trigger when their health is low at 50% hit points instead. A lot of berries now, such as orange berries and citrus berries, activate at 50% now anyway. But there are also stronger berries like Agua, Wiki, Iapapa, Mago, and Figgy, which heal 50% of their maximum hit points, but only activate at 25% of the health most of the time. Gluttony allows you to eat those berries much sooner, at 50%, and turns Grimer and Muck into a tank once you get access to growing those. Grimer gets Bite at level 7, which is fantastic given Grimer's high attack, plus it gets Stab. It'll hit quite hard early on, and with Poison Touch, you even have a chance to poison the foe for even more damage. Acid Spray is Grimer's first damaging poison-type move, but it's special-based, so it doesn't make use of Grimer's attack. It lowers the target's special defense by 2 stages, effectively cutting it in half the first time it's used. Although that's not all that great for Grimer or Muck directly, it can actually be very, very helpful for your team, especially against tough totem fights. Use that against totems, taking advantage of Grimer and Muck's lack of weaknesses, and then swap in a special attacker to take advantage of their drastically lowered special defense. Even Grimer should be able to take 2 or 3 hits while spamming Acid Spray. It doesn't directly help Grimer or Muck, but it can make a lot of tough fights a lot easier, especially if you have support from Healing Berries with Gluttony. The downside is that Acid Spray isn't as helpful in most other fights, since Grimer and Muck don't have great special attack. Anyway, it gets Poison Fang at level 18, which isn't great, but it's at least a physical-based poison-type move. And you'll have a good chance of poisoning with Poison Touch. Minimize can be handy for raising its evasion by a lot. Crunch at level 32 is a great upgrade from Bite, and should definitely be in Grimer and Muck's moves. When it evolves, it gets Venom Drench, which lowers the attack, special attack, and speed of any poison Pokemon. It's a bit situational, but can also be handy with Poison Touch. Gunk Shot at level 40 is strong, but rather inaccurate. Lastly, Acid Armor at level 46 boosts its defense by 2 stages, and gives it a ton of extra lasting power, at the cost of a turn and a move slot. As for TMs and tutor moves, it gets Fire Punch fairly early on for move tutors, which helps add some extra coverage. Recycle is an interesting option with Gluttony, which restores its consumed held items, so it gives you a bunch of healing. Or you could just use potions. Rock Tomb is helpful when you get it, and Ice Punch and Thunder Punch on the 3rd island via Mood Tutor are also great for more coverage. Muck can learn Brick Break too, which is decent, as well as Rock Slide and Stone Edge. Although you won't get the TM for it until the end of the game, Poison Jab is a great move for Muck, alongside Crunch. The biggest problem with Grimer is the fact that it takes such a long time to evolve. Level 38 is ridiculous, and while Grimer can at least do a bit of work on its own, it'll definitely feel lacking for a while before evolving. As I always say, there are plenty of dark types in Alola, and Muck is one of the best. But for so much of the game, you'll be using Grimer when you could be using something like Zoroark instead, or plenty of other options. You could also wait until the 3rd island to get a Grimer there, so you don't have to go through the first 2 islands with one. But Muck winds up as a great Pokemon for the rest of the game after it's been evolved. Alright, that's it for this Pokemon review episode. If you enjoyed it, perhaps consider hitting that like button, or subscribing to the Marriland channel for more. And if you have any other cool strategies, ideas, recommended moves, or overall opinion on any of the Pokemon here, even if you just like it for being adorable or something, feel free to leave a comment down below to get the discussion going. You can find more Pokemon reviews, as well as my Pokemon Ultra Moon walkthrough series, in the links below in the description or on this end screen. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.